All right, so let's talk about the written work that you're going to do for all your scenes and monologues. If you are in acting one, there's a different written work assignment for your sonnet. But for your scene, if you're doing 2 scenes or whatever, all the acting work you do in all the acting classes, you will do this written work except for sonnets, and you probably already covered what that is. So, for every character and every play, you will research. I'm sorry, my video is doing something weird. Never mind. You'll do research and script analysis. It will contribute towards your understanding of the play and therefore understanding of your character. And the information and the insights that you gain during this process will provide you with knowledge that is required to create a compelling character and character choices. And having to explain this work will make you have the information in a way that creates a reliable process for you. And it'll help you in any role that you play. Let me be clear, as you probably heard me say before, that this research in given circumstances and the script analysis work is preparation. There are some artists who claim that, they don't prepare, they just show up and they're inspired. That's really lame. None of this work that you do is going to prevent you from being an artist and from working from impulse or whatever. It's simply going to inform your process. You submit this on Moodle, and it's my goal that we will discuss these in class. So when you prepare your discussion, you might want to excuse me. You might want to have access to this document that you've submitted on Moodle electronically. But the main things that I would want you to share with your fellow actors is what was some of the research that you found really productive, and what are the most important given circumstances for your character, and why are they the most important given circumstances. Let me see if I can get this thing to scroll. Do the research first, and here's how you do the research. You will find 6 sources, at least. I'm fine with you having more. The more, the better. They need to be reliable sources, and they need to be sources that will help you create a character. So you'll find the 6 sources, and you will type it up like this. Need the name of the source, and do include the name, not just the website, but what's it called. It helps you sort of validate the respectability of the source. And then you will let me know the date that it was published, not the date that you saw it, but the date that it was published. How new, how relevant, how fresh is this information? And the date that you accessed it. So 3 things at the top there. In 1 sentence each for all of these. 1 sentence is important. It makes you think succinctly. It makes you get to the point. And that can help you stay out of your head when you are on stage. So that's why I give you this assignment. So why do you trust this? Why did you choose the source, and why do you trust it? It doesn't have to be a whole lot of depth, but give me 1 quick little sentence about that. 1 sentence explaining what did you learn that will be useful as an actor. If you can't answer that will be useful as an actor, then you should go on to another source. 6 sources is not a bunch of research for a character, even if it's just a monologue. And then you're going to give me 1 sentence explaining how this information will affect your behavior as an actor. Not just, oh, it was cool, oh, that was neat to know. How will it affect your behavior as the character? So that's what you do for 6 sources. There are some guidelines Each of the sources must contain unique information. I don't want you to waste your time with a whole bunch of sources that tell you the same stuff. So find sources that have new info. All the sources should provide you with information that contributes towards the task of creating the character. This is not just a research exercise. This is an acting exercise. So find information that helps you act. It is likely that you will have to consult many more than 6 to find really good info. So plan on that. I only need to hear about 6, but you're probably going to consult a lot more. Research should hit on the following topics. This doesn't mean the number of sources, because one source could hit many of these topics. You need to definitely look into the playwright and their other known plays. What are they known for? Is this play along the lines with what they wrote? Is this something unique, or is this their best known play? Look into the play itself. I skipped. For well-known playwrights and for well-known plays, more than one source is great for this information each. For a very well-known play, you should always start with the playwright and the play, and then past productions of the play. So make sure you look into that. I will cover in just a minute plays that are not well-known and playwrights that are not well-known, or information that's not plays. Definitely look into the time period. Even if the time period is today, number one, ask yourself, what does the playwright mean by the present? The present means the date that it was written. If it was written in 1980, that's a very different world than today. Even if it was written today, what is it about today that informs your character choices? This will not be research about, you won't be looking at the play as set in this time period. You will simply look at what's going on in this time period. This is obviously very important for plays that were written long ago. Look up, what was it like in 1930s America, New York, wherever the play's set. And then we get to the location. How does the location affect your work as an actor? If the location is not clearly defined, you might have to decide on where exactly the play is set. Bear in mind, this isn't just city and state, or what about the room? Where are you? How does where you are affect what you're doing? I also want you to come up with a visual image that contributes to your understanding of what the set might look like. I frequently see actors make huge leaps when they know exactly where they are, and this will also help you to create that. You're not going to build a set, you're not going to design and paint a whole room, but you can decide how do you arrange your configurations of chairs to tables. Having a specific physical location makes a huge difference in your work as an actor. And knowing what that world looks like, even if the audience doesn't see it, if you see it, we will see it. I do not want you to send me pictures. I want you to describe it. Having to put it in your own words will help you create a stronger association with it. If necessary, this element can contain more than one sentence. Up above I say, I cracked the whip. I said, you can only give me one sentence. Well, for this one, maybe a couple will be okay. So other suggestions for other things to research. Themes, what is the play about? Thematically, as well as topic-wise. Is it a play about a couple that has lost a child? So there's a lot that you can research about that. Is it a play about two kids playing around on railroad tracks, and they're one's a person of color and one's a white kid, and they're having issues about race. What's the play about? Some psychological characteristics of the characters. You can research that. Emotional characteristics of the characters. Really look into your clothes. What do you think this person is wearing, and how would that affect you as an actor? This obviously has a lot to do with, if you're doing a period piece where they dress very differently, and that really, you cannot overestimate how important that is. But, even, something written sets in the 1970s, how was their clothing different? What does it look like? What would you look like as this character? Activities that they're doing, or maybe their jobs. There's a 10-minute play that I've assigned frequently where two people are refinishing a floor. What are you literally doing when you do that? Is your character a bartender? What are some things that bartenders know that are sort of implied in the script that can inform your language? Anything that contributes to your understanding of who the character is very important. So, as I said before, although you should always start with, I hate Google Docs, you should always start with researching the play and the playwright. It is possible that you will not be able to find information about the play and or the playwright, especially for 10-minute plays, and maybe for your performance material and acting for camera. If you're doing something you found on Monologue Blogger, or you might be doing a poem, or you might be doing something that's not from a play, or from a movie. When we looked at the script analysis stuff down below, if it comes from a movie, you will be able to get all that information from the full text, from the screenplay, from watching the play, from watching the movie, as you would from reading a play or seeing a play. But that's not always possible. If you cannot find information on on either the play or the playwright, then simply focus on the other sources above. Figuring out what you need to research is an important skill for an actor also. Couple tips. Look for the way that other actors and directors have approached the play in production if you're doing a play. Especially if you are doing a play, New York Times reviews are great. So use the word review in your search, and you will come up with some juicy stuff. Couple other guidelines, really. These really aren't hints, this is more guidelines. You need to know the meaning and the pronunciation and the context of every single word you say. If you would ever go out on stage not knowing exactly what you're talking about, you are insane. There may be words that you don't realize you don't know how to pronounce. If you have any shade of a doubt, you must look it up. You must look up meanings. You must figure out how to pronounce words. So do that. However, these do not count towards the required sources for this research. Looking at a video for of someone performing your material is an excellent idea, particularly for pronunciation of words that you don't know how to pronounce, or you think you do but you really don't, which often happens to me. However, those do not count towards your required sources. Feel free to list them, but that won't count towards the number that you got to have. So now on to the script analysis work. Looking for given circumstances. All of these, so answer all of these questions in the first person. That really helps start thinking of yourself as the character. Really help you identify with that character. You've got to read the whole play before you turn this in. If you haven't read the whole play, then you can't do this work yet. Read the whole play. It's actually often recommended that you read the play numerous times. Any acting teacher will tell you that you've got to read the play more than once. The first time you read it, you're just getting a sense of it. You're figuring out the plot. We, as human beings, are always thinking what comes next. You're not focusing on the character. You're not focusing on a lot of things, except for, hey, what happens? So read it once for the plot. Second time, read it for think about your character specifically. The third time, read it through and think about, what is your character doing. Reading a play 3 times really is the bare minimum. Enough about that. once you have read the play at least once, if not numerous times, you will answer these questions. First, you'll answer these questions about the play. To be brutally honest, they're just so I can make sure that you have read the play. Especially if you're working from a well-known play, you could find a lot online, on Wikipedia, on GradeSaver, on whatever. But that's really not the info that you need as an actor. You need to read the whole play yourself. In order to answer these questions, you need to listen to the script analysis lecture that I have loaded into Moodle. Hopefully, if I forgot, let me know. It's not possible. You will not earn any credit if you can't answer these questions. So, what's the stasis of the play? As you know from the lecture, that is what's the situation at the beginning of the play. Give me the 5 most important facts. Focus on your character. What are the 5 most important facts that make up the stasis of the play? The situation at the beginning of the play before anything happens. The first most important thing that happens is called the inciting incident. What would you consider the inciting incident? Remember, this is something that we see happen on stage. It did not happen before the lights went up. It's not somebody one character telling somebody about something that happened in the past. It is something that happens in the present on stage. What's the climax of the play? This one usually pretty easy to identify. What's the highest point of tension? This is sort of the resolution of the main event of the play. And then, so those are just sort of factual things. Generally, anybody who reads the play would agree on what these things should be. But then here's your chance to use your imagination, use what you think is important. What's the play about? This is not a plot synopsis. You will never type up a plot synopsis for me. Probably. Having said that, I probably will ask you to do it as a way. I'm not asking what the plot is. What are the themes? What are the issues? What are the ideas that the playwright is grappling with? You know, is it about forgiveness? Is it about becoming the best person you are? I don't know what it could be. So just think about that. It can help you decide on what your super objective is when you know what the play is really about. Speaking of, what is the character's super objective? What do they want out of life? As you know, every character has a super objective, and then you have an objective within your monologue or scene, and you have an obstacle. So what are those things? Here you're just naming them very clearly for 6 and 7, for 5, 6, and 7. You're going to flesh those out just a little bit more and give me more description below. I used to require students to turn in a rehearsal script. I will still want to see that throughout the term. I still want to know that you know how to create a good rehearsal script, but it's just easier to deliver the information to me if you, for each beat, you will, what's your verb and what's your elevator phrase. This means that you need to decide what your beats are. Ideally, this is done with your scene partner, but it does not have to be. Let me be very clear. This is the work that you should do before you go to the first rehearsal of a play. No, it's not set in stone. You can certainly change it, and you will change it as you make discoveries, as you work with your scene partners, if you're in a play, as you work with the director. But you need to come to rehearsal, the first day of rehearsal, with all of this stuff prepared, that you need to do your homework. So that's what we're doing. What does this say? In acting for camera, you may not be able to answer questions 1 through 4 above because the material you're doing is not from a play. But even if you have to make them up, you should still answer questions 5 through 9. And I'll cover that, what do I make up and what do I get from the play in just a moment, probably next. Yes, it is. So you're going to turn in those 9 things, and then you're going to answer these. They're from Stanislavski, just for your future knowledge as an actor as you move forward. Stanislavski's 7 questions. This is what they are, and we all know who Stanislavski is. So the play or what other source material it may be, could be a movie, could be a book, and this is just for acting for camera people. As you know, especially in acting 2, 3, and intermediate 1 and 2, all your material will come from plays, full plays. But especially in acting for camera, you may have to use your imagination to answer some of these questions. Even if it is from a full-length play, you might not have everything spelled out completely, and you may have to use your imagination to answer some of these questions. That's great. It's wonderful to use your imagination. I'm always trying to find more ways to incorporate, cultivating your skill of using your imagination as an actor into my acting classes. However, even if you are having to use your imagination, answering the following should not go against, should not contradict, should not go against what the play says. Frequently, last term I had a lot of students ask, where's the play set? And they would create this wonderful place. Oh, I think it's set here. Blah, blah, blah. Well, the play actually tells you exactly where it's set. Most importantly for that circumstance, they came up with all these examples. It was in my living room. It was in this city, inside a bar or whatever. Well, actually, the play was set outside. And that was a very important aspect of the play that they just didn't gather from reading the play. So whatever you come up with, you start with a play. I'm totally fine with you answering these questions only from information you get from the play. So, who am I? And how does that affect my behavior? The most important, as you will see in a moment, and this is the most important aspect of all of these questions. It does no good to come up with all these specific things about who you are, where you are, your given circumstances, and blah, 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 if you don't think about how it affects your behavior as an actor, as a character, and therefore as an actor. This first one, you could write a book about, so feel free to wax philosophical about it and go in depth. Really look at all of the script, think about what your character says, and actually, really importantly, what other people say about them. Think about the character's past, things that have happened to them in the past, and what has made them who they are. Include 5 important events in the life of your character. That's going to take some thought. That might take some creativity on your part, but, what are some important things that have happened to them in the past? Where are you? And how does that affect my behavior? This one's, don't sell it short, just because you're in a kitchen. How about that? What about that location affects your behavior? Script will usually tell you where you are, but consider how your character feels in this place. Is it public or is it private? That's a very important distinction. How do you move when it's cold versus when it's warm? The space your character occupies can determine how they behave during a scene. Also, what are you wearing? That is dictated by where you are. And how do those clothes affect your behavior? What time is it, and how does that affect my behavior? Not just time of day, but season and month. And again, that sort of goes back to clothes. But, in summer, we tend to be more active. In winter, we're sort of cold and slow. And then obviously you get into things like historical settings, which are extremely important if that is the case for your senior monologue. I hate Google Docs. So what do I want and how does that affect my behavior? So for questions 4 through 7, you've already addressed these briefly above. Now flesh them out a little bit. What do I want and how does that affect my behavior? What's your motivation for doing what you're doing? Everything is done with a goal in mind. So what is it that you want and why do I want it and how does that affect my behavior? There must be a driving force behind your objectives. your action is more important than your motivation, but your motivation is still very important. Give your character a convincing reason for acting, and things need to be done with high stakes. It needs to be important. If it's not important, then your acting choices are not going to be engaging. How will I get what I want, and how does that affect my behavior? So, what are you doing? Use your words and actions to influence the other character. Don't just give me a list of verbs. You know, get specific with this. Really put some thought into it. What must I overcome to get what I want? And how does that affect my behavior? You know, what's your obstacle? You said it nice and simply above. Now flesh it out a little bit more. There's someone or something in the outside world that's keeping you from getting what you want. You know, maybe it's you. Find out what they're fighting against. And I've added one more here just because I think it's a really good exercise to use in class. What's your moment before, and how does that affect your behavior? What has just happened? Where are you coming from? What's really on your mind at this moment? But when right before you start speaking, how do you feel? And create an elevator phrase. And this could actually probably be your most important elevator phrase. It's what it can help you prepare emotionally for the scene. You've already got a verb and an elevator phrase for each beat. Now come up with an elevator phrase that really gets you into the moment, into the first moment. So how does grading work for this? How can I scroll? Turn everything into Moodle. So scenes and monologues need to be selected by the due date on the calendar. Otherwise, there's a 10-point deduction from this work. It's really important that you don't procrastinate on choosing your material. So pick it on time. I put the date on the calendar so that it gives you time to read the play numerous times and do this work before it's due. How does the late policy work? It's due before the beginning of class, so you have to submit it before the beginning of class on the due date on the calendar. Where are we? However, I do accept late work, as you know. If it's turned in within a week of the original due date, there will only be a 20-point deduction. If it's turned in after a week and by the drop dead date, there will be a 40-point deduction. However, a 60 is better than a 0. So I have been known to give a few extra points for written work, even if it's late. If it's exceptionally well done, you can earn some extra points. So yeah. No, you're not going to get an A if you turn it in late. It's not the way the world works. But it is still well worth your while to do it. If we're dealing with a situation where performing an acting showcase or having your scenes or monologues shot by a professional videographer, as we do in acting for camera, you can't do either until your written work is done. Yeah, if you want to, if just for grading purposes, I have to have it by the drop dead date, and that's clearly marked on the daily schedule. But if you want to take advantage of these awesome opportunities that you have by taking an acting class with me, if I may say so, by performing in Shakespeare Showcase or having a professional videographer done it, you've got to do your written work before you show up to set or before acting showcase. What else have I said here? Even if the questions on play structure are not answered correctly, they must indicate that you have read the play. Yeah, don't worry about, don't stress over it. Exactly what is the inciting incident? Blah, blah, blah. Think about it. I mean, if it wasn't important to put some thought into it, I wouldn't have asked you to do it. But they don't have to be perfectly correct. They need to indicate that you have read the play. If you haven't read the play, you're not getting any credit for this written work. Sorry. Can I reinforce that a little bit? You got to read the play thoroughly. If you don't earn full credit, possible credit on the day that it's due, this is referring to late policy. then you can redo it. However, the maximum points will only be the maximum points it would have been for that day. So if you turn it in a week late and you've already got a 20-point deduction and the grade that you end up earning is a 60 because there was a 20-point deduction because of the content, because you didn't address all the questions or you didn't do it thoroughly enough, you can feel free to turn it back into me, and as long as I get it by the drop dead date, I will regrade it, and I will possibly, and you can earn some of those points back. However, the most points that you could earn will be the points that you would have earned in the first place due to the date that you turned it in. So I hope that makes sense. If you turn it in a week late and you got a 60 because of quality and you redo it and it's perfect, then you will still only get an 80. Hope that makes sense. If not, please, by all means, ask me questions. So you will get full credit. These are all you have to do is this stuff, and you will get full credit for the potential points that it's due that you could have earned on that day based on the late policy. You got to follow all the guidelines. You got to answer all the questions and answer them well. Questions about the structure of the play need to indicate that you've read the play. Gee, I'm sort of hitting that hard, aren't I? The research needs to contain information that is directly applicable to the purpose of acting. Each resource needs to be credible and needs to have unique information. And the character analysis, the Stanislavski 7 questions and your verbs and your actions, needs to be very thorough, even obsessive, and really needs to address how does this affect my behavior. So that's the written work. Feel free, I implore you to please ask me for clarification on anything. This may seem like a lot of work, but the more thoroughly you prepare, the better your acting work will be. This is what professional actors do. I do this work every time I approach a character, every time I play a role. This is your prep work. So, yeah, it might seem like a lot, but if acting was easy, we'd all be movie stars. So, have a good day.